Well, I think we'll go ahead and get started with our time together. And I have about somewhere around 15 people that had signed up, so might be a few more stragglers coming in. But yeah, thank you guys for being here. I'll just introduce myself a little bit, and I want to hear where everybody's from and a little bit of why you chose this workshop, Breakout Session. Hopefully, in about an hour from now, you feel like you made a wise decision. So, my name's Caleb Breed, and I am currently serving as a church planting catalyst for Rosedale Network. Coming up on about 2 years working in this role, and yeah, it's been a joy to work with Brian and Darren and be a part of the team, and to get out and connect with leaders and pastors throughout our network and see how God's moving and working. And I think I had this vision of when I came on staff that as I stepped into this role as church planting catalyst, I kind of had this vision that we were going to see this explosion of church plants take place. We haven't seen that yet, but we do have 7 active plants at this moment, and so really excited about what that looks like, and we might talk a little bit more about that later. But we have church plants from all the way out west in Austin, Texas, to upstate New York. We have some in southern Indiana. We have Hicksville Mennonite in northern Ohio just started a church plant. And actually just this week, in some meetings I was in, there's kind of these conversations starting to kind of stir with 3 other groups. So God's moving, God's working, and excited to kind of just see how this unfolds and how this takes shape across our network. So my wife and I, Stephanie and I, we're coming up on 17 years of marriage. We have 2 kids, a 14-year-old daughter and a 9-year-old son. Anybody got teenagers? Yeah? It's exciting times. Yeah? 8th grade. My daughter's an 8th grader, and my daughter and I have a great relationship. You know, I've heard these horror stories of fathers and their daughters not having good relationships, and I'm grateful that I have a great relationship with her and my son as well. And so we live in Plain City area, and yeah, that's where we both grew up. My wife and I spent about 13 and a half years in Phoenix, Arizona, working with Aim Right Ministries. And then, coming up on about 2 years ago, we moved back to Central Ohio. I know. Why go from a beautiful place like, Sean, would you ever leave Sarasota? No. We got 6 inches of snow Friday night. And my wife was like, what are we doing here? When you have to scrape the back steps to get the dogs out so they can go to the bathroom. I had to take the snow shovel and drag a path so our little dog, could run through and use the bathroom. Anyways, but a little bit about me. Just maybe quickly tell us who you are and why you chose this workshop. So we'll start in the back and just kind of work our way up here. So name, church you're from, and why you're here.
Ray Horse from Farmville Mennonite Church, Farmville, Virginia, Powhatan Mennonite Church.
Okay.
It's interesting. When I saw this, I said I got to do this. We're in the middle of getting ready to expand our sanctuary, so I want to hear what you have to say about building it.
Yeah. Okay.
And I have to be the project manager, so.
Okay. Good. Welcome.
My name is Marlon Garcepisol from Convent Community Church, Chambersburg, Pennsylvania.
This is my first cousin.
Okay.
I had to point that out.
He wasn't going to admit that.
I'm a retired pastor, and we built a church in 2001, and we're packed out already. And so we're going to do something. We're landlocked, so I'm not sure what we're going to do. So I'm here.
Always go up. Good. Either way, come snake around or however.
Herman Yoder, Light in the Valley Chapel, also retired, or stepped down. I didn't retire from ministry, but stepped down 7 years ago. And the reason I'm here, I knew Caleb. And our church is full. We are, the beams are going out. I mean, it is full, and I am no longer have no part in in any decisions that are made at church, but it might be interesting to sit in here and just see what you have to say about it.
Hmm.
I'm Kelsey Jerkovich from Fairlawn Mennonite Church in Ohio, Apple Creek, Ohio. And our leadership team, probably over the last year or so, has been having some intentional conversations about the growth we've been experiencing, possibly planting. And so just looking to learn some more.
Good.
Sean Otto, Bethel Mennonite Church in Sarasota, Florida. Just Sunday night, we presented plans to add on an education wing, and I guess I'm feeling low level guilt. So I want to see what you have to say
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
that. About my guilt.
I'm Brandon
And-
Stowe, First Mennonite Church in Montgomery, Indiana. We are completely full and potentially even having to go to 2 services, and yeah, we're interested in what
Yeah.
we don't want to do that, so
Yeah.
we're looking to learn.
Good. Good.
Jason Showalter. I've been involved in a couple church plants, and I read your updates. Was interested in coming here and
Yeah.
doing in person, and so yeah, that's why I'm here today.
Good. Cool.
Seth Hankey, Stewart's Draft, Virginia, about 35 miles south of here.
Okay.
Yeah, growing, busting at the seams, and called the consultants.
Yeah.
And the Baptists are all planting churches, and I'm not. All my Baptist friends plant churches, and I'm not sure that's the silver bullet. So I want to hear. I want to hear
Okay.
whether
Yeah.
planting or 2 services. So.
Yeah. Okay.
Mike and Ruth Bender from Turkey Run, and Dylan Roof is with us.
Yeah.
I'm here because I'm selfish. I like full. And we're getting there, but we're doing a building expansion of Sunday school rooms.
Okay.
And we've been talking about a sanctuary.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pastor as well as in charge of all that. So
Yeah.
I'll just be honest, I'm here to pick you apart.
Okay. All right. Dylan?
Yep.
You're part of the team?
Yep.
Yeah?
Dylan Roof,
Okay.
I think.
Good. Good, good. Awesome. Well, I did some workshops up in New York about a week ago, and I just like to start times like this because it kind of can help me kind of gauge where we need to go, and kind of what we want to spend some time talking about. And so this afternoon, really what I want to do is kind of look at building, look at planning, and then we're going to have some group discussion time for you guys to kind of chat amongst yourselves. And so Mike Troyer, one of the pastors here yesterday, we were setting up. He said, "Caleb, give me the rundown really quick about what your build or plant workshop's about." And he was looking for like a should I build, should I plant answer. And I was like, well, I don't even know if I know the right answer. So I'm just going to throw that out there. This afternoon, again, I just kind of hope to help get our wheels turning and get us thinking, because honestly, I think deep down inside, you guys know the makeup of your church, you guys know the makeup of your community, and you know ultimately what God's leading you to do. And I'll just put this out there. If God's leading you in a certain direction and you feel that is clearly from Him, that the Holy Spirit's speaking to you, then do it. If it's build an education wing and that's how the Lord's leading, do it. If it's plant a new church, do it. I think we just need to clearly follow God's leading and how He's leading us. And so I want to start with this. I do some training, and I've been connected with an organization called Exponential. They do church planning, they resource people, and they've done a lot of study and a lot of kind of diving into the makeup of what churches look like and what churches are striving towards. And this is something that they've put a lot of study into, and they have come up with this idea. You guys were nodding your head, so you maybe are familiar with this a little bit. The level, they would say that that there's 5 levels of churches. Level 1 is a declining church. A level 2 church is a church that has just plateaued. It's not growing, it's not declining, most likely will decline over time. Level 3 is an addition church that's just focused on adding to that critical mass. A level 4 is a reproducing church. And so in other words, you've got one church that's planting another church, and that home church, that mother church, is kind of continuing just to plant churches. It's reproducing itself. And then a level 5 is what they would describe as a multiplying church that you see like generational impact. Does that make sense? So like if Fairlawn plants a church, and then that church plants a church, and then that church plants a church, and before you see, you see this kind of family tree just grow, and it becomes a generational thing. And the reason I share this afternoon, is for this reason right here. And there's nothing wrong with it, but most churches, actually before I get there, from Exponential, they've discovered that 80% of churches, there's about 314,000 Christian churches in the U.S., and that 80% are at a level 1 and 2. 16% are at a level 3, 4% are at a level 4, and there's very few that they haven't even like assigned a percentage to the level 5. I met one level 5 pastor a couple weeks ago who said roughly you can trace like 2,500 churches back to him. And so, yeah, just kind of throwing this out here just to kind of give some ideas what, in general, what our churches are striving for is to become a level 3. You said it. You like to have a full church, right? We like to look across the space. That we like to look across our congregations, and we like to see it full, right? No, we do. Let's be honest, right? I go to a church right now that's a little bit smaller, and when I walk in and it's a small crowd, I'm like, I want to see more people. How do we get more people in here? Now, is there anything wrong with an addition mindset? No, there's nothing wrong with an addition mindset, but what if we, as Rosedale Network, had this across the board? If we could live in a perfect world, all of our churches would be planting churches. Okay, that's where I live, and that's what I would love to see, is that all of our churches are planting churches, and we're multiplying ourselves. We're sending people out. They're creating new communities. We're sending other people out, and they're creating new communities. And you're seeing this multiplication effect. We're not just trying to get everybody back here to Dayton Mennonite and build and grow bigger and grow bigger. Another day, another workshop. As you grow, things change, right? Kelsey, you guys have experienced a lot of growth within your church, and you've had to build a support team, a staff, to accommodate that growth. Nothing wrong with that, but there's a lot that goes into it. And so, again, at the end of the day, we have to decide what is God speaking to us and how is He leading us, where is He asking us to go. A parable that you guys are all familiar with is Matthew chapter 25. And I'm just going to read it for us this afternoon. And kind of this explanation along with this parable, I want it to just kind of be the backdrop of our time together. And it's the parable of the talents. And when I read through this the other day, it just kind of put me in this mindset of like, God has given us responsibility at different places. He's given us pastoral leadership, or responsibility as pastorals, or as pastors. He's given us responsibility as kind of the older generation, but still there to pour into the younger generation. And what He's given us, we need to be good stewards with, right? If He's called us into leadership roles, we need to be good stewards of what he's put where he's placed us. So the parable of the talents says, "For it will be like a man going on a journey who called his servants and entrusted to them his property. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, to another 1, and to each according to his ability. Then he went away. He who received the 5 talents went at once and traded with them, and he made 5 talents more. So also he who had the 2 talents made 2 talents more. But he who had received the 1 talent went and dug in the ground and hid his master's money. Now after a long time the master of those servants came and settled accounts with them. And he who had received the 5 talents came forward, bringing 5 talents more, saying, Master, you delivered to me 5 talents. Here, I have made 5 talents more." And you guys know, the story goes on. 5 more, 2 more, and so on. And we see at the end of this, where's he at? His master said to him, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful over a little. I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master." He also who had received the 1 talent came forward, saying, "Master, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you did not sow, and gathering where you scattered no seed. So I was afraid, and I went and hid your talent in the ground. Here you have what is yours." But his master answered, "You wicked and slothful servant. You knew that I reap where I have not sown, and gather where I scatter no seed. Then you ought to have invested my money with the bankers, and at my coming I should have received what was my own with interest." And so again, as I was kind of preparing for today and thinking through, I thought about what's God given us, and how has he placed us in positions of leadership, and what has he given us responsibility over. And so what I want to do is we're going to break up into some small groups here, and we're just going to discuss as a group reasons up here. Why? So as you're sitting there right now, we're going to kind of focus on the build aspect, but what are some reasons? Why do you want to build? And come up with some reasons. Why do we want to build? And then I want you to kind of write a list of pros and cons. Okay? Make sense? Sound good? All right. So we're gonna divide up into some groups. We got about 12 to 15 in here. We're gonna divide up into 3 groups. I've got group 1 here, group 2 in this part of the hallway, and group 3 down in the other part of the hallway. But simply divide up and discuss. Come up with some reasons why, pros and cons, and then we're going to come back in here, and you're going to pick one person in your group to be a spokesperson for your group, and you're going to share why, pros, cons. Sound good? Okay. Husbands and wives, do you want to stay in the same group? Okay. So you together are going to be 1, you're going to be a 2, you're going to be a 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Sound good? So 1's in here, 2's in this part of the hallway, 3's there. I've got markers for everybody to grab. Yeah, you're a 2. 2's. I'm not going to do orange because orange is hard to see. You are a 1. You guys are 3's. Perfect. So let's take about 10 minutes here and talk about some of these, 10 to 15 minutes. And talk about some of these things, and then come back in and we'll break down where you guys are at. 3's are down just past the stairway.
Pro and con?
Yeah, however, if you want to do why up there, pros, cons, actually save one sheet for a little bit later.
I think that's what he meant. Like,
2's are right here, on this wall.
Yes, so we're just using one paper.
Just use one paper for now. Hey, 3's,
This is why we're...
just use one paper for right now. You're going to use the other one for later.
I guess you could say
Well,
buying.
well,
Yeah.
building is in building one, right? Building addition.
Building addition, it can be whole new building,
Or
Okay.
buying,
Anything.
buying land to build.
buying land to build, yeah.
Well, I think that is a pro would be, I guess you did. They're wanting to build like one signature. And that's one way. And so if you continue to grow, you need extra space to accommodate people.
So you're saying you can accommodate.
I'm not a good speller either.
Accommodate more people. I think too is, you can move from 2 to 1 services, potentially.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If you're trying to keep everybody together and this more continuity there, yeah.
It's easier on your staff.
Moving into a church in the Sugar Creek where I'm from, there's all kinds of churches there, most of them are renovation.
Economically, we decided to go ahead and do the
Is that what you're saying?
New church in 2000. What's that? We've done this church in 2001. To replace a church that. We borrowed several times. They built for, and at that time the church was only about 55 people. So they built for 200. And they were full. And they landlocked. Oh no. But the Lord's been very good to us, and we are to do some events. We've given tickets around. They're my life and County Corner from. And so there's some plans. That'll be our bill shares. Under the cut. Okay. There's another kink in there, we're gonna tell you this. The people that originally lived in our community.
For us is we feel like we have a great discipleship program in place. And so, and we can expand that without adding significant human resources. So it's an expansion of the great discipleship that's already happening. Con, big fat dollar signs.
That'll be a common theme. I know.
Pros and cons right now.
Yeah, all on the same, yeah, yep.
Can't come up with any cons.
No?
Okay.
We can.
And a con would be,
Cons would be you need new books, you need new material, you need a new chairs, whatever.
And what's attached to all that?
what's that's a con of building or a con of,
His suggestion was that the reason to expand where you are is because your infrastructure is already in place.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if you plant, now you have to build a new infrastructure.
Okay, that's good. Yeah.
My nephew is just got ordained as an Amish.
So just so you guys know, that right now the cons are for building. So we're talking pros of building and cons of building. Not planting yet.
Right.
Nope. So we'll get there. That's what sheet number 2 is for. So yeah, right now is cons of planting. Yes, cons of building. Yes, thank you.
The maximal number of the acre you're in, but it definitely does take that toll at the time period.
At the same time, it can be drain on focus. It can also be energizing for a church to think about the bigger picture. So it can energize, and
I think they can also, that's what I'm looking for, focus the vision of the church for the next season.
As you were talking, the other.
Really, right.
Imagine the new paint smell and the new carpet smell.
Yeah.
We can agree on the color of the paint.
Right? Yes, very true.
Agreeing on the color of the paint.
Yeah, the decor, yeah.
And even just maybe not as many access costs for it, like in a smaller group.
Yes. Oh, it's a big one.
And whereas if you have,
And the staff say, we pay you to do it.
More involvement?
Primarily about the building.
Yeah.
Expanding, building something else.
Find land to build.
Yeah, find land to build, yeah.
Hey, maybe like 2-3 minutes. We'll wrap up here. About 2 to 3 minutes.
Location gives them a place to go.
2 to 3 minutes, and we'll wrap up.
Just be a real nightmare.
I think too, and even, I'm not sure exactly how to quantify this, but, Caleb was mentioning was like the fact that as your church grows, like that in a lot of ways changes staff, maybe the way that you disciple, like your philosophy of ministry. It changes a lot in relation to just some fundamental areas of church life, I would say. And whether you see that as a good or a bad thing, like people are going to view that differently, but it's a challenge.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would put it in a necessarily con, but it is a challenge.
I want the right.
Oh, okay. You guys are full of
You guys ready?
We'll let you do it. He's the scribe and the
Here, we can put them up on here. Just kind of should stick up there, okay? We'll let group number 2 go first, I guess. Oh, thanks.
Pretty even.
We're already done with that, that's a question.
I know, right? That's the problem.
Money.
You guys kind of nodded your head about Exponential. Have you done any of their stuff, or?
They do the regional events, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think I've been at one in DC.
Okay.
Oh, you're not
take
gonna
that.
read that.
They're like 1 day, right? 1 day.
They do some regional, and then they do an annual event in Orlando, and
Yep.
yeah. So, but quickly, I will say this: this like level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 thing. Like, I don't go around saying, hey, you have a level 1 church, because I kind of find like that to be a little painful. But I just kind of want to. I started putting some of this language out with some of our leadership, and just sharing with them, like, hey, like, you know, we talk about a church and we say, hey, church X over here is declining. You know, if we say, hey, like, let's use this language maybe on the back end, or maybe we put it out there in the future, I don't know. But anyways, just want to put that out there, that we're not like walking around saying, hey, we got to determine the level of your church right now. You know, it's sometimes the writing's on the wall, where places are, but anyways, just want to put that out there. So group 2 spokesperson, want to come share what you guys, just share with us what you guys came up with, and as you're listening, if there's anything you observe and want to share as feedback, go ahead and share some feedback.
So some of the pros we came up with were just more space to accommodate young families, new people coming in. We don't want to send them other places. We want to involve them in the life of the church. Not wasting money by spending smarter, and it's kind of thinking ahead to how to build well, and that sometimes carefully thought out expansion can save money rather than perhaps building something new somewhere else. In one example in our group, they're simply following the vision of the master plan that's been laid out by previous leaders, and so that's viewed as a continuity and staying in line with the vision that's already been cast by earlier leaders. Expansion of existing discipleship programs. You got a good program in place. There's been a lot invested in building that and creating that. And growing the church can allow that to continue to bless people. There's a big pool of both human resources, people to select from in leadership, and also financial resources. And then on the con side, big fat dollar signs was, I think, the direct quote. A lot of money can go into this. It ends up in one case, it's drawing people from farther away. They have to commute farther to get to a central church location. Changes in the culture of discipleship as the church grows, as you noted. Impact on relationships. We can only handle, I think the number I've heard is 150 meaningful relationships. And so as churches grow, it pushes beyond that, and we have to figure out ways to keep smaller groups. Professional overhead of staffing. And there's an increased expectation of performance and quality as a church tends to grow. And then less involvement, less avenues for people to become practically involved in the life of the church, and more of a spectator mentality.
That's true. Good. Good. Any feedback on group 2? How many, the commuting farther, people that commute, how many of you have people that commute to your church like 45 minutes to an hour? You guys do? Everybody? Wow. Okay. Do they do that with a smile?
We have an older couple from Delroy, which is probably close to an hour, 45 minutes an hour. And they're non-Mennonites, came to our church one Sunday morning and walked in and said, "Is this a Mennonite church?" And Mark was here in the spirit this morning. His dad was there. He's no longer living. He said, "No, we're not a Mennonite church. We're a Christian church." Secondary resist.
Really? Huh. Wow.
I have my sister every Sunday. Got many other churches to go to, but this Turkey Run is the only one that feels right.
Yeah? How far does she drive?
About an hour.
Yeah. Our family commuted. Isn't it funny how we say commute? We commuted to church for about 2 years. We drove about 30 to 40 minutes in Phoenix, and it lasted for a season. And you know how many churches though we pass in a densely populated city like that? So yeah, great, good job. I like and maybe we'll get to it when we get through everybody's, because I know we're going to have some overlap. But group 1, somebody want to share from group 1?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think we covered some of the same things.
Yeah.
We were just talking about sometimes building projects can be a drain away from the actual ministry that you're called to locally in the church. So it can keep you from focusing on that. And then your staff are focusing in other areas, trying to grease the wheel so that people give, and giving campaigns, and so it can just take focus away. You can get in fights about decor. And it can sometimes be potentially divisive. I know someone came to our church very recently. They said, "Man, I just am tired of these giving campaigns and these churches that just." And I was like, you're coming, we're about to like potentially do this, so you're at the wrong place. Yeah, I didn't tell him that right. It can change the feel and the way the way you do ministry, like you said.
Yeah.
The pros, obviously, accommodating more people. Sometimes, I know one really large church in our area, they're excited to go from like 4 services down to, they're going to build like an 800 or 900 person sanctuary. So they're going to go from multiple services just down to 2. And for some people, that could be helpful on staff and volunteers, which is, it's a drain to go to a bigger service, a bigger church. And pro, as someone had mentioned here, that their old building, when they move to the new one, they're going to repurpose the old building and kind of use it for the community. So that's a pro. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Cool. And you had energize and focus vision for next season.
Yeah.
Good. Any thoughts on group 1, what they shared?
The con, the one that applies the most, probably would be the decor. You put the water fountain on the wrong side of the door, and it can be.
Not in the church.
It can tip over the boat, can't it? Oh man. Okay. Good job. Group number 3. Somebody want to?
One of the first things is probably it depends largely on how your church operates. Let me just explain Turkey Run. And I guess if you want to know a little more about Turkey Run, Ruth and I wrote a little article in the latest Mirror. We've had 4 building campaigns over the years. The first was in 1803, when the original log cabin was built. When that burned down in 1858, they built a new one. And then in 1990, we built our existing sanctuary. That's when we actually had indoor plumbing for the first time. And then we added a gym in 2005. So now we're looking at another, we're at 125 people. But the pastors have always been bivocational, always. So what that does is it changes the dynamics of a congregation. So you're not really program driven. Programs are good, but because of that nature of the congregation, it kind of forces things to be divvied out. Because a pastoral staff isn't there as so that's a dynamic that needs to be considered. Well, obviously a pro is you need more room, right? That's obvious. It's to reach out also into more people in your community. I remember when we did our sanctuary edition, we had a church a company, Myler Church Building Systems out of Indiana. They canvassed our community and they had us build according to their statistics that they found. They said when a building becomes 80% full, a new person walks in and they'll leave because it doesn't seem like there's any room. For a lot of us, we just scoot together, but that can be uncomfortable for a new person. So you can reach more people in your own community. People enjoy what is already happening at your congregation. We have people that drive 45 minutes from this way and 45 minutes from that way because they like what's happened in this church. So to keep that thriving and growing. Cons, we started with why not to build, but Caleb set us straight on that. One is a building program can generate some pride, like a Tower of Babel mentality. I told I'm a pastor, but I'm a builder at heart. So there's not a building project that I don't like to see. I just told them up front, that's where I come from. But it can also, you have to overcome that. You can lose that sense of community. Others have said, of course, there's cost. You need more leadership. Church discipline can suffer because as the church grows, you can lose track of what's going on and all of that. So
yeah, good job, awesome. Anybody? Something you see up there that caught your eye that?
If you can read it.
Yeah.
Well, textures now,
right? That is actually one that I haven't really thought of. Is that pride thing? Is like it can become a, hey, look at our building. Look at what we have now. Look at the state of the art. I got a friend that I'm gonna talk about here in a little bit, but they just recently built a new church, and he was giving me a tour of the building, and we walked into the multi-purpose sanctuary auditorium room, and he started apologizing almost immediately for this giant LED screen wall, similar to what they have here on the stage here, but it was a little bit bigger. And he immediately was apologizing. He's like, hey, I don't know why we had to get such a big screen and why we had to get this, so it's expensive. And he's like, we could have done projectors and this and that. And I just looked at him and said, don't apologize. Like, if you had the money and it was a part of the plan, and, it works out great and it looks great. You go there on a Sunday morning. Yeah.
I was going to just say one thing that was reminding me about the pride. I think 17 years ago our church grew and we had to double the size. And they were concerned about the focus being on the building. So they decided they were going to tie the entire building project to missions.
Wow.
So right off the top, they just tied the entire building project, and so the focus then became on where are we giving this, and so the focus became very missional. So we were able to help ministries in Africa and other places that kept our focus there rather than on the building. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, that is really cool. Yeah.
The one that caught my attention was the one on church discipline. I never really thought about that, because as we have had to do church discipline, if people leave, where do they go? They go to the big mega church over here where nobody knows them anymore. And do we want to become that church?
Yeah. So true. So true. And so the church that my wife and I commuted to for about 2 years, they had 5 services a weekend. 2 on Saturday, 3 on Sundays. The auditorium sat 3,500 people. So 16,000 people through in a weekend. Do you think I could have done whatever I jolly well pleased throughout the week? Nobody was accountable. No, I was accountable to nobody, right? I was just showing up. I was a number. I was a butt in the seat. I sat down. I was ushered in as soon as the service was open, kind of like a movie theater. The door opens and just everybody just shuttles out, and they had baskets for us to drop our program so they could recycle. Anyways, but there wasn't that connection. The likelihood of us having a church in Rosedale Network build something that big, that's not a part of our DNA. It's not a part of our, network really. But I was just a number. I was just a person. And you can never meet with a pastor. You can never have that connection. And so as we grow and as we get to bigger numbers, you do lose some of those things. And so if we build and we get bigger, and we create more space for more people to come in, the dynamics do change. So 2 years ago, RBC hosted a training and ministry event put on by a guy, and the guest speaker was Carl Vaders, and he talks about like small churches and kind of what the sweet spot is for some small churches. So if you're interested in anything like that, let me know, and I can get you the link to his website. But as I kind of think about building, and again, I'm not anti-building. I think it has its place and it serves its purpose. But when I think about like ideas and when we're going to build, these are some of the things that come to my mind immediately. If I'm going to build some space, right? Everybody said the dollar. Everybody had that cost, the cost. And so if we're going to build, if we're going to remodel, is there something that we can do that will help generate income? Now understand that could go against somebody's maybe theological stance or understanding of what can and can't happen in a church. But is there a way that we can build with a purpose that generates income? So I got a friend in the Columbus area, and they planted a church called Ethos Church about 5 years ago, and they meet up in the Polaris, so kind of North Columbus area. And they built, they were gifted land, and instead of going and building an auditorium, a sanctuary, they went and they built a coffee shop. So they have a master plan. They have a master plan to eventually build an auditorium with seats and space like that. But their part of their master plan is to have space on their property that becomes a communal space. So before they even built the sanctuary building, they built this coffee shop, and it's beautiful. Polaris is a very affluent, if you're familiar with North Columbus, Polaris is kind of very affluent area, but they built this space, and Monday, they call it their everything but Sunday space. So they have a group of staff. Their staff use this space as their office on the second floor, but on the main floor, they've got tables, they've got couches, they've got a coffee shop, they've got meeting rooms and things like that people from the community, anybody can come in and use the space. And I thought that was a really cool idea, because they could have come in and they could have built their sanctuary, but yet they're still using space at a convention center type space across the freeway, and they're putting time and energy in every Sunday morning to set up and tear down for their church services. You know, if you were doing that for 5 years, you would think that you would want to say, no thanks, we want a stationary space. So they're generating, whoops, my wife's not here to spell check for me. They created a space that's going to generate income. And that's going to serve a great kingdom purpose for them because it brings people in from the community. If we're going to build, are we going to build with the idea that we want to open our space to other people? You guys, different of you guys talked about it. Where was it? Reach out to new people in the community. This can be a great way, if we have space, if we're going to build, to create space for people to come in from the community and use our space. Simple things. My kids are in 4-H. Anybody? Kids in 4-H? No? Grandkids. So my kids, their 4-H group meets at a church in our local community. Now, some of those people, a lot of those people in the 4-H group do go to church already, but it's a great opportunity to have a meeting space that you can open, because as people come in, they may be people that never step foot in a church. And so right now you may not have that space. You may not have something that accommodates those things, but as you build or expand, that would be something that you look at doing. Weddings. Any pastors like to host weddings at your churches?
Nobody gets married in churches anymore.
Right? But if you're going to build, now this would be that, build a space that people want to come and have. Can you build? Can you put a space that people have that desire to come and do weddings? One, can generate income, can connect you with people. As you know, if you're the pastor or the project or events manager or whatever at your church, or you just oversee those things, you can connect with families, and they may not be a Christian family. The likelihood of them using the church is pretty slim, but it can happen. Anyways, weddings, community center. Anybody familiar with CCC up in New York? Christian, what is it? Christian Community Center. Yeah. Brian and Cherie Segrist up there? No. So they built a building. They planted a church in Turin, New York, and they started out meeting in a restaurant. Worked really hard. They got land. They wanted to build a building, and they built this amazing building that has a gymnasium that doubles as a gym, doubles as their auditorium, and doubles as an event space for people to come in, host birthday parties, host family reunions, host those kinds of things. The whole church is set up as that. Now, they called it Christian Community Center. They didn't call it a church because they want to keep that out in front of them, this idea of we want to be for the community. And so we want to create space where people can come in and use it. And so I like that idea. I like having a community center space. Living Hope up in Watson, New York, Todd Wall, if anybody is familiar with knows Todd, they're talking right now about building. They just built a building, but they're kind of talking about the next stage of building and talking about building a community center, a place and a space for the community to come and use Monday through Friday. So, My only thing, this is my personal bias or opinion, is if we're going to build a church, if we're going to build a new building, if we're going to build a big addition, it needs to serve a purpose. Again, personal soapbox thing for me. I get tired of driving by churches and seeing them not used Monday through Saturday. I think we have a great opportunity, and we have a great opportunity and space to use and have available for people to use Monday through Friday. I'm not saying that it's wrong. That's just a personal, you know what I'm saying? I drive by a couple churches every day on my way to work, and you never see cars. The one I never see cars, ever, and except for Sundays. It's like, man, like, do a food pantry. Do something. I know it takes work. I know we have to have team. I know there's things that need to be in place, but man, if we can use our buildings and have a purpose for those buildings, then the opportunities we have to reach the community can be amazing. Any thoughts, or tracking okay? I'm probably, Sean, you're probably not going to get a clear answer from me. You're going to have to, on your plane ride home.
We actually have talked about generating income with a new building, some rental space.
Yeah.
Gymnasiums are in short order in Sarasota, so you can rent out a gym pretty much any night of the week. Weddings, our church actually used to host a lot of weddings, and we pulled back for theological reasons. Because it was getting a little iffy, some of the weddings that were being asked to be not same-sex weddings. That would have been pretty clear cut. But even beyond that, people living together, people like it's just so we can pull back from that.
No, all can be tricky things. There's a lot to navigate as we discuss this, and whether it's moving towards planting, whether it's moving towards building or renovation, at the end of the day, I trust that you guys and your leadership teams are going to spend time praying and discerning how the Lord leads, right? We do that with major life decisions. Hopefully, we do that. And we spend time asking on how the Holy Spirit's going to lead. Kelsey, you guys just recently did a children's wing, right? Would you mind sharing, with us what kind of led? Were you a part of that process?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was here for that.
Do you mind? Sorry to put you on the spot, but yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, we were talking about having too many kids when I walked in.
Yeah.
That's our church. Keith, our lead pastor, will often say that we take the command to be fruitful, multiply seriously here at Fairlawn, because there's babies everywhere, which is amazing.
Yeah.
And so, this was, probably 2 years ago when it was completed. So 4-5 years ago when the process really started, when we were just running out of space, particularly in children's ministry. And there were other renovation parts, a part of that as well, but we had added 8,000 square feet to the children's wing and did some in-house renovation and some other stuff. But the driving thrust of that was one of the vision things for it was in our community, 35% of the people within I think a 5-mile radius are under the age of 13. And so that was a big part of us realizing there's a lot of young people in our community, which means there's a lot of young families. And so we wanted to prioritize making sure we had space for children. And so we decided to make that space big enough to have the community in. And another point too on this here, and this is something that we definitely thought about as well, how can we use the space in meaningful ways? And it's interesting that in our context, Mennonite, the name Mennonite is actually a pretty big hindrance to people coming to our church. And we've actually had a lot of people come to our church and join our church who got in the door by some other means. They were part of a co-op that met at our church, or they were at a wedding, or at some event that was held here.
Yeah.
And, you know, they saw our core values hanging up on the wall, and they were like, wait a second, like, you know, and so, like, we were able to, in those ways, people were able to come and be a part of what we were doing here that otherwise wouldn't have been, because we're making the building available for other purposes.
Yeah. 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 It's good. It's awesome. And two, I would say, Seth, you said something about like looking for land, right? Or you know, trying to find land to build. And I would even just encourage you guys, if you're at that point in your church, be very like intentional about where you find land. Don't just like go with, you know, the big field out in the middle of nowhere and you know, far away from town or you know, but just be intentional about where you find land if you guys are looking for land. I mean, I'm assuming Bethel, where you guys are now, years ago was kind of no man's.
In the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, and like I said, I haven't been there for a while, but is it grown up around you guys?
1,000 new homes are going in on the one side. All around.
Yeah. So some people might have looked at you guys 15, 20 years ago, whenever that was, and said, you're crazy for building out here. But there was that direction, that leading. So another friend of mine in the Hilliard area, just in the last year, built a brand new building. They planted a church in Hilliard 10 years ago. They met at the local YMCA, and for 10 years, every Sunday, went in, unpacked everything, set up their church, set up the stage, set up the sound, set up the lights, all that kind of stuff for 9 years. They built with a purpose. Their building's not huge. And to build anything these days, it's expensive. But they built with a purpose. They have a room that people can access from the exterior of the building, and they can lock off the rest of the building. So if they want to host like Young Life or 4-H groups or birthday parties, they've got that space that people can access. Key code, come in, there's a bathroom, there's a kitchenette, there's a meeting space. They can use it. They built their current auditorium as a multi-purpose room. Again, kind of this master plan for down the road to add a more long-term auditorium, but that's how they built the building. They have an idea where the future doorway is going to go to get them into the new wing, and they have the idea on how things are going to flow into the future, and so it has purpose. The other great thing is the land that they purchased is right across from the road. It is in a rural area, but it's right across the road from one of 3 high schools in the Hilliard area. What better place? As students are leaving school, as parents are leaving school, they see this church right there. And this church is actually a level 4 church. And they've been a level 4 church for the last 5 years because they are reproducing themselves. They're getting ready to send out their 3rd church plant. And so they're building with a purpose. They continue to be at that level 4 church, and they're doing all those things. So, and you know, the pastor, he showed me his office, and his office has no windows, and is probably, no exaggeration, I want to say his office is probably only about like this wide. You know, you might be saying, well, my office is smaller. I don't have an office at all. But when I walked in and I saw his office had no exterior windows, I'm like, dude, what are you going to do? How are you going to survive or function in this space? But he's not the guy that just sits in his office Monday through Friday or whatever. So those are some of the things kind of as we talk about building. And as we switch gears here a little bit, as we plant churches, and as we talk about multiplication, most of us live in rural communities or drive through rural communities. What is in every rural community? Cows?
A dead mall.
A
dead mall.
A dead mall, okay.
General Dollar.
Yes.
What?
Every community has a Dollar General. Every rural community has a Dollar General, right? or a Family Dollar, but there's a Dollar General popping up everywhere. And as I was thinking about today in our multiplication, I'm like, if we could just be like Dollar General, we would have churches popping up all across our network of churches. And so as we kind of shift gears towards this multiplication, I want you guys to think, or church planning multiplication, I want you guys to think about Dollar General. And there's probably one thing about Dollar General that drives you nuts.
Overpriced.
Overpriced? Okay. Wasn't going to go there, but you walk into Dollar General and it's just chaos, right? Boxes everywhere, the stocking carts that they use to stock everything, stuff everywhere. In Plain City, you get on our Facebook message board thing for the community, and people are just bad-mouthing Dollar General all the time. But the one thing that they've gotten done right is they have a location every rural community. And some of these locations are what we would define as food deserts, right? There's not a major grocery store, there's not a Walmart, there's not this kind of thing. And so think about Dollar General, think about your community or your greater community, and the reason that Dollar General does this, listen to this. At Dollar General, they say, we believe that everyone deserves access to the things they need, whether it's saving our customers time and money, ensuring our employees feel valued, not sure about that, but or investing life-changing community programs. We're here to bring the goods, the growth, and the opportunities people need to the places where they matter most.
Sounds great.
Sounds great, doesn't it?
Just
a church.
Yeah.
after we left here last night, we went to a Dollar General.
Yeah.
And
Was it a good experience?
And it was just like you described it.
Yeah.
The cashier, he said it's the best job he's ever had. He was a chef for 20 years.
Really?
It was chaotic, and he said, this is the best thing I've ever done. So that part about
Yeah.
their employees,
Yeah.
apparently,
That's interesting.
He said every night he felt like he was ready to have a heart attack.
So the mission, their mission is to serve others, and their motto is DG, Dollar General stands for convenience. Now, again, I know, sounds great online, but I will tell you this, as I was researching Dollar General, if you look at my web browser, you're going to be like, what in this world is this guy doing? Dollar General has done some other things that are really, really good. They've done, for me, within my house, 15 minutes from my house, in different directions, there's 5 Dollar Generals. 15 minutes from my house, okay? Dollar General has come up with, I can't find where it was, I had it somewhere. Dollar General has Dollar General X, so their sign says DGX, and that's their urban Dollar General that is in like our metropolitan areas, so they're a little bit, the walls are concrete, the floor, well, the original one is concrete too, but it just has a different vibe to it. It has a different decor that is inviting to people that are living in some of our urban up-and-coming communities. They have a DG Market. Anybody seen the market yet? Yeah? So they have a market now that has produce, that has things that, again, in these food deserts that people need to live healthy lives. They have a Dollar General in Mexico. That is their first international Dollar General. And so they've done a really good job about going into communities and becoming what the community needs. Their methods change, but their mission stays the same. So I want you guys to think about that when it comes to church planning. You think about Turkey Run, and Turkey Run, people walk in there, they come there because of community. They come there because there's relational aspects, there's relational components. But if you take Turkey Run into a different part of, say, Columbus, Turkey Run may not exactly fit, right? You may come to a different part that people might desire more program-based things. They want that relational, and you can have both. They want both of those, but they might say, we want more programs, we want more things. And so when we think about what God is asking us to do, where He's asking us to go, I think one important thing is that when we go into new places, that we have to understand is, one, that the message is always going to stay the same. The overall message is going to be to point people to Jesus, but our methods need to change and to be different. Dan Horning, he said he's 20 minutes away from here, but you guys are in Harrisonville or Harrisonburg?
South. I'm
South. Oh, somebody in here from Harrisonburg. You are, right? His church is probably night and day different than your church here in this community, right? And so, kind of just where I'm going is, as we kind of understand where people are coming from and people that are maybe commuting to our church, and we begin to kind of look outside of, hey, we don't want to take on a building project. We want to send people out. And we begin to look at these places. One of the things that can be a roadblock is saying, well, we can't do that because how do we replicate what we have here and make it fit over here? Well, you're not going to replicate exactly what we have here to make it fit over here. And so when we think about church planting, we think about different ways and different planting options. And there's all kinds of different things out there. There's house churches. Anybody house church in here? No? I uttered those words about 4 years ago to my best friend. I said, hey, what do you think about planting a house church? And he said, I think that'd be a really great idea. I never thought those words would come out of my mouth. But for the time that we planted that house church and we were part of that community, great experience, great time. It was a great way. Missional communities look more like different communities scattered across the city, and then maybe once or twice a month they meet at a central location. So you think about that. You think about the traditional, right? We have the building, we have the Sunday morning service. I just wrote it down this way, but Thursday night church. You know, why not plant a church on Thursday night? Somebody up here, we talked about sending people out or losing people. Why not plant a church in a community 15, 20 minutes from here on a Thursday night, and for a season, those people can still come to your Sunday morning church? And so a lot of times, some of what we have to get past is these preconceived ideas, these preconceived kind of notions that, you know, hey, we're going to lose everybody at once. This week we're talking about radical trust. We're talking about radical trust, and as I was again preparing for this afternoon, that's the thing that comes up all the time, is we're going to lose people. If God's calling us to plant, I believe in it, but that means I got to lose people. But I would just ask you, in a week like this, do we trust God? Do we trust Him? My friend that I talked about that just built the new building, they send out 70 people. Their goal is 70 people when they send these church plants out. So over the course of 9 years, they've sent out 210 people. That seems overwhelming. For some of us, that's 5 times the size of our church. Right? And it can be nerve-wracking, but don't we trust God enough that He's going to replenish or put people in places? Again, all of these up here, right, we talked about infrastructure, we talked about those different things, but the reality is all of us have people sitting in our churches that are gifted in many, many ways. They're gifted in ways to help build the kingdom, build the church, and those gifts aren't being used. Would you guys agree?
Amen.
Okay, thanks, Furman. Makes me feel better. Right? They're sitting there, but they're not being utilized. And so, one, are we being a good steward of what God has given us? Are we raising up leaders to go out? All right? Are we putting people in the places where they can help build the kingdom? Are we just trying to keep everybody over here in our own little group and hang on to people? It can be daunting. It can be daunting to send people out. It can be daunting to get rid of people. But if you were to sit back 5 years from now and say, wow, I sent Furman and his family out and they planted this church And they started with 20 people, and now there's 200 people. In 5 years, we saw this. You know, Furman could have just wasted away sitting in your bench on a Sunday morning and gone and find something else to fill his time or to live out his life. And so, church planting can be daunting. Church planting is hard work. Pastoring is hard work, right? As pastors, there's all kinds of challenges that we're faced with, right? Broken families, different things, walking through life with people who are losing loved ones, who are, have young kids that are walking away from the Lord. Pastoring is not hard, or it's not hard. Yeah, pastoring is hard. Church planting is hard. But I want us to think about, if we plant new churches, we're going into communities that don't have a gospel presence, or we're going into communities where people aren't being reached with the gospel, and we have this opportunity to bring about life transformation. That's what we have this opportunity to do. And yeah.
I was going to say, in our area, a lot of churches have been planted in in Augusta County, just south of here. And I mentioned a lot of my Baptist friends, they have this amazing program with Southern Baptist Virginia, where they're seeding money for 2 years, and then they wean you off, and then you give 15% of your budget back.
Yeah.
But what I noticed there is that the people that come to these churches are just recycled from other churches in our valley.
Yeah.
Almost entirely. Like, I'm not saying that there aren't new people, but by and large, almost all the church plants that I've seen, and some of it drives me crazy, is watching Christian brothers and sisters who are leaders in churches just get up and leave to go to the next church plant because they know somebody there. There's a cool, fresh vibe. And so our area, I don't want to say it's saturated with churches, but there's a lot of churches. And so, again, I know the other side of that is, well, then you're going to be ministering to believers at your new church plant.
Yeah.
So there's just a lot of Dollar Generals in our area.
Yeah.
And so, do we just go across the mountain an hour away? And at what point, that's prohibitive then, because people can't make that drive.
Yeah.
So I'm just thinking out loud. That's the devil's advocate in me as I kind of think about planning.
Yeah.
But I don't want to throw water on a fire.
No, you're good. So, and it just kind of sparked something here. There's a guy named Peyton Jones. He's in Southern California, and he oversees an organization called New Breed Church Planting. And he describes it this way. He says there's a difference between planting a new church and starting a new church. Starting a new church is going with critical mass and getting a building, having a Sunday morning service, establishing all those things, versus planting is going to a community, spending time there, getting to know the community, right? Gardeners in here? Anybody? Some of us, right? We want the soil. We take care of the soil all year long. We till it. Ours has a cover crop on it right now that we'll till into the soil later on here in a couple months. And we take care of the soil because we want our vegetables, we want our produce to grow, and we want it to be healthy. And so when you think about planting, and I'll close with this because I know we can hear the chatter, and I don't want to take too much of you guys' time anymore. The idea of planting is going into a community and establishing yourself and getting to know your community, getting to know your neighbors, getting to know the rhythms of your community before planting that Sunday morning service. Does that make sense? And so I think demographics and just becoming familiar with the community. And so for my family, as soon as we moved back to Central Ohio, we immediately, hey, let's plant a church. Let's plant a church. Like, that's what we need to do. And so we started the conversation. But I realized that the community that I used to live in 15 years ago was completely different now than it was back then. And so I had to find my rhythm. I had to find and establish myself and discover kind of where I fit in. And so my wife and I are very intentional about being involved. Our kids are in 4-H. We're involved in that. My son plays soccer. I coach his soccer team. I stay connected with the parents. We go, don't forgive me for saying this, but we go trick-or-treating. One, because I love candy, but it gets me out in the community. And when I take my kids trick-or-treating, you know who we run into? The soccer kids, the soccer parents. We're building relationships. We're connecting with people. We go to the community events, and we just go to those things with that in purpose in mind. We're here because we want to get to know the people of the community. And so we kind of jumped into it, and we're like, let's do this. And then I was like, wait a second. We need to find a rhythm. We need to find out what the rhythm of this community is like. We need to get to know the people, get to know our neighbors, so we can establish ourselves. So then when we are at a place to plant, we can say, hey, I can't remember Savannah's parents' names, but we can go and talk to Savannah and her family and say, hey, we're starting a church. If you would like to come and get connected, we'd love to have you. Because there's already that relational component versus just kind of popping in and starting something new. And so Peyton Jones refers to it, he says planting versus, I think, new church, establishing a new church. I can't remember exactly how he says it. But those are the things that I think about when it comes to planting new churches. And building is great. People are attracted to the new. But when we plant, people are also attracted to the new. And we have an opportunity to create a new culture, a new DNA. Because if people aren't coming through our doors for something else, like you were saying, Kelsey, on Monday through Friday, the likelihood of them just stumbling into our doors on a Sunday morning is really slim. But if we're starting something new, if we're starting something fresh, people are more likely, more apt to step into a space like that. Make sense? Questions, thoughts, concerns?
So, a new church plant in another community. It has to be far enough away from your existing church so it's not just another competing church, correct?
Yeah.
More or less.
Yeah.
But, okay, so you can't, we have kind of a church plant Turkey Run has done. The gentleman in our church spearheaded it. It's it's 15 miles away. People from that area will never come to our area. But because of the nature of that community, it's a tough community to begin with. But nobody from Turkey Run lives there. So anybody that goes there has to commute. Now he's done everything he can. He does a lot of other things in town. He's gotten to know a lot of people.
Yeah.
But it's just,
Yeah.
There are two other little churches there. One of them's more of a cult, and anyway, so it's been a struggle to get off the ground because nobody really lives there.
Yeah.
And so so you're talking about you're uprooting families when you're talking about a church plant. Is that correct?
Yes. Or you're identifying, and you talked about like they kind of call it a reshuffling of the sheep, right? I'm okay with that. I say I'm okay with that. So I'll use Northern Indiana. There's a group up there that they've got people that drive 45 minutes. And some of you guys said that. They've got people that drive 45 minutes from one town to their church. And I said, why not take the group of 45, or whoever's commuting from that town 45 minutes away and start a church there? Establish a church there. And you're going to lose people. You're going to do that. But they don't have to move. All they're doing is moving churches. But they can take what they like about this church here, and they can create that and establish that here. So yes, there is chances where somebody might have to relocate. But for the sake of not relocating, if we have people that are commuting so far, it is going to look like a little bit of a reshuffling. But you have to go with the intentionality of saying, we're going to reach this community because we want them to experience what we're experiencing. If I'm willing to drive 45 minutes to experience this in this community, I want to build that over here in my community so people can experience that.
And what I hear in your difference between plant versus new church is this idea that if a church takes root in this new hard community 15 miles away, like there's probably some specific cultural things that
Yeah.
are going to be true about that church, and it will look different. Like as it grows and takes root in that soil,
Yeah.
it's going to be different from Turkey Run. And God has gifted some people in that community with pastoral gifts and teaching and the other gifts that are needed for that church.
Right. Right.
It doesn't all have to come from Turkey Run.
Right. When I showed up to Phoenix in 2008, I was wearing Wranglers, cowboy boots, and a big buckle into the big city. That's what I was wearing. Now, it was somewhat accepted in Phoenix because we were Southwest, but I had to change. Nothing changed about what I stood for, but my appearance changed. I didn't put a pair of boots on for probably 10 to 12 years. I now have 2 pair of cowboy boots in my shoe boot collection because of where I live now and kind of what I'm doing outside of work sometimes. But like, we have to become a part of the community that we're trying to serve. Not in such a way that we're changing who we are, but we're changing those methods. Does that make sense? So again, he talked about change last night, and that can be daunting. But I don't want you to hear that we're changing our message. We're just changing methods. So, yeah. But any other thoughts, questions? If you think about anything,
The Amish might be a good example of what they're doing. The church I grew up in, as an Amish kid, we probably had 10 miles distance that we went from one way to the other way, at least 10 miles or more. And my nephew was just ordained as an Amish preacher here last fall. I've been talking to him. His dad passed away, so they kind of take me as their dad. And I think there's about 5 or 6 churches created from the church that I grew up in. They don't move away. It's just flocking in, and just build more churches. They probably get up to 20 families. He said everything's new. They got a bench wagon, or they got a trailer, they call their benches. I said, so you got a new trailer? Yeah, he said, we got everything new. New boots, new trailer, new songbooks, and he said a new preacher.
1979, I'll close with this. 1979, Mechanicsburg Christian Fellowship was planted. Mechanicsburg is a town of about 1,500 to 1,800 people, small town, typical small America. They got a Chevy dealer, coffee shop, little diner, and a gas station. That makes up pretty much Mechanicsburg. 18 miles away is London. A group of people were commuting from London to Mechanicsburg to help with this church and became a part of this church. And over the course of time, and about 4 or 5 years after that, they realized, hey, why are we commuting to Mechanicsburg when we live in London? And so 18 miles away, they began meeting in London, and now we have London Christian Fellowship. 15 miles away from there is Agape Community Fellowship in Hilliard, and Shiloh is in the mix of all that as well. When I referenced the 5 Dollar General stores 15 minutes from my house, the Dollar General store that's over here and the one that's over here serving 2 completely different groups of people. And so we think about that in our churches. Now, those people aren't driving all the way over here to this Dollar General. And so we're serving 2 different groups of people, and those people most likely are not going to overlap. You compare London, Mechanicsburg, and Hilliard, you got 3 totally different demographics of people. Hilliard serves a different purpose than Mechanicsburg. Mechanicsburg serves a different purpose than London. And so you really have to look at the community that you're in and what God's called you guys to do. So, I don't know. Hope this was helpful. Anyways, but let me pray for you quick and you guys can go. God, thank you for today. Thank you for this group of pastors and leaders that are here. God, I pray that you would bless them and encourage them this week. God, as they're making decisions, you know, there's different leaders in here that are making decisions on whether or not to build or expand or what that next step looks like. I pray for wisdom. I pray for you to clearly speak to them and their leadership teams and what direction to take. We just ask these things in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.